What's happening? I hope everybody is having a great start to the week. I wanted to talk about my post from yesterday, Monday. Yes, can't keep track of the days. Where I talked about contacting coaches and how many you should contact. On this last post, I actually edited it back down to just saying 30 or more. There's definitely a lot of controversy, but a lot of debate about how many coaches should you contact, what the reason is for contacting so many, why suggest so many. I will never forget leaving. I did a seminar for PKB and had one of my dads say, well, somebody else said his daughter only contacted 7 and it worked out fine for them. You don't need to contact that many. And yes, which is exactly what I talked about if you read the actual copy of the message. Yeah, especially if you're a top ranked player. I've worked with several players throughout each recruiting class that we can keep that list a little more specific. But to be honest, even some of my highest ranked players still typically tried to look at least 15, 20, or 30 schools just because they knew that, it's easy to quickly get eliminated or for them to eliminate options, and they wanted to try to keep them open. But yet, no, they didn't have to contact 100 schools because they were truly realistically able to look at some higher ranked schools, know that the process looks a little bit different in that perspective. So again, yes, there is a time, a place, a reason for maybe not having to contact as many, or maybe it's you want to stay fairly close to home, and so you're only looking at a particular region of schools, and there's just not as many within that. So again, there's definitely reasons and exceptions for it. One of the main I actually kind of want to talk about 3 reasons why I say what I do. We'll dive into those in just a second. But one of like I said, I've kind of come back down on that number a little bit. It used to be, I worked for a recruiting company like years ago when I first started in this business, and it was like contact 100 or more. And to be honest, yeah, there's some situations where I've had players or I've seen players have to do that because it takes that long to finally get to what's realistic or to really finally connect with enough coaches. Maybe the scores are a little bit higher, whatever that might be. But I brought it back down to say at least 30. To be honest, in my heart, I still feel like it probably for majority out there is going to take at least 50. I get these lists from girls, and while I know their intentions are great, and I know a lot of times they will say, I know that, some of these are dream schools, it's still such a small list of what actually might be realistic. And I know how quickly that list and the lack of responses that a lot of girls get just because coaches are busy, they're not interested, they're done, whatever it might be. Early in the process, those coaches are trying to get what's even unrealistic for them in a way. I was just talking to a coach yesterday, and she's like, hey, I'm swinging big, I'm trying to get some of the best players right now. Eventually I may have to settle for something different, but hey, I am putting all my efforts into, the best recruits I can get, even if it might look unrealistic to those who are looking at my current roster. She's a newer coach, she's trying to rebuild the program. So again, it's so easy for a list to dwindle down. And if your list is not realistic and it's small, you are going to get frustrated. So really the 3 main reasons why, even at the end of the day, even if, you do have a good resume and you do feel like you're really being realistic, or even when I work with clients and we try to be as specific as possible, even though, again, I know I've got to let them stretch themselves a little bit, even though I know sometimes those responses back from the coaches are disappointing. But one of the main reasons is being able to practice, get feedback, get a little more comfortable with having conversations with coaches and learning from them from places that aren't your number one on your list, where you're going to be super nervous and you really need to make the best first impression. If you wait and your first call is with that school that you've just been dreaming, you're going to be nervous. You haven't practiced yet. You don't know how to answer the questions yet, no matter how much you try to prepare. So giving yourself a chance to maybe do that at places that aren't high on your list helps get you that experience, gives you some feedback, and it really helps build some confidence. One of the toughest things that I see happen with the girls is when their list is so unrealistic and so many responses are negative, or once you get here, reach out to us, or just over and over those responses, it can kill your confidence and really hurt your game. Again, even if in the back of your mind you kind of are expecting that, it's still just frustrating. Even if in the back of your mind places you're reaching out to you may not really want to go, just getting some responses, just getting some coaches who really just say, yeah, we'd love to have you on a visit, or we'd love to stay in touch, or hey, I got the chance to watch you play. That just builds some confidence that then allows you to grow and develop your game, and hopefully within the time frame still reach maybe what those dream schools are. Or in some cases you open up your options and you find out that's really actually not what you want. So really that first reason is to give you a chance to have some good practice, feedback, build a little bit of confidence with maybe some coaches and some programs that aren't just that, dream school where all the anxiety's built up or you're just constantly getting negative feedback. The other reason, which is really the main obvious reason, is just so that you give yourself enough options that are realistic, enough that you're not just one of 30 that's on their list, that you're one of their top 3. Again, it's, we talk about looking at their rosters and trying to put yourself in the third place score. Even then, there's still some variables that don't make that as black and white as it may seem. You may look at what their third player's current scoring average is and think, well, hey, I'm not that far off from that, or hey, that's my scoring average. There is some relativity to that's a scoring average at the collegiate level, tougher courses, tougher conditions. And again, a lot of times coaches are still trying to improve their roster. So they're trying to even get better than their third place player. Or if it's early in the process, again, they're really trying to get a new number 1 player. So as the process proceeds, sometimes you'll see that adjust a little bit. So again, to really truly find what's realistic and not just what's that borderline, you being there and giving yourself the chance to be the top recruit at a couple of places, you've got to usually expand your list out in order for that to be the case. And the third reason is really kind of when it comes down to it, the more options you give yourself, the more leverage you give yourself to start to pursue offers and maybe ask some of those questions. Otherwise, a lot of times you just get stuck on hold with one coach or maybe 2 coaches, and you don't have any way to kind of find out what their timeline is, or maybe start to ask, hey, I've got this timeline for this offer, and go to one of the coaches that you're maybe a little bit more interested in just to see, hey, am I even a potential recruit for an offer? You really can find yourself stuck at their mercy versus trying to put it in your control just a little bit more by having a couple of options that, again, might not be the top of your list, but it gives you something to start to push the needle a little bit towards maybe making a commitment and having yourself have the opportunity to ask some of those questions that are at an appropriate time with the coaches versus just having to kind of sit and wait for them to make offers, work their way down the list, and just really kind of leave you in the dark sometimes. So again, the more that you do contact, the better chance you may have that leverage. Occasionally it does happen where you get an offer sooner than you wanted to, and you got to make a tough decision if you're ready to make that commitment. So sometimes that does happen. I've seen that where some players are kind of like, I wish I wouldn't have done this so early because I'm not ready to commit, but this is a great opportunity. It can make for some tougher decisions, but you'd rather have that than the alternative. So again, really kind of the 3 main reasons. Gives you a chance to get some good practice feedback, build a little bit of confidence with some programs that are going to give you some positive feedbacks, just give you some feedback in general, give you a chance to do some calls, possibly even go on some visits, and work your way into developing yourself to be ready maybe for those other opportunities that might come up once your game gets a little bit better and you maybe get a little farther into the process. Number 2 is just ensures that you get enough realistic options. So this kind of go hand in hand, but it just makes sure that even what you may think is realistic, you're really making sure you're giving yourself some options, because it is tough, it is competitive. Coaches have a lot of reasons for doing what they do. There's a lot of girls out there trying to play college golf. It is very tough. So again, even when you see what's realistic, you're probably realistic in that same category with 100 other girls potentially that are looking at that one same school. So the more you get, the more chance you get to find something that truly is realistic. And then just to give yourself a little bit more leverage in the end so that maybe you have a little bit more power in your hands. Not to necessarily be, I'm definitely not a proponent of overly negotiating or being shady or using one offer. There's definitely a line between what is fair, what is honest, and everything to you and to the coaches. And then there is a different level of using them in an unfair, dishonest kind of way, not in any way encouraging that, but just to give yourself a little bit of leverage and a little bit of power to maybe help move the process along and not be at the mercy of the coach's decisions. And like I said, in a very fair and just way of doing that on both your side of the equation and the coach's side of the equations. Always try to be very big on that. It can be kind of a thin line, but there is some room for that to be there and give yourself the best opportunity for you. So hopefully this elaborates a little bit. It's always hard when I just throw a post out there, even though I try to explain it in the context of it. Sometimes I just like to hop on here and chat, and hopefully you'll listen through and take some of that advice and implement it as you get ready to start the process, in the middle of the process, whatever that might be. As always, if you need anything, reach out. Lots going on, lots to do, some new programs that we're launching and everything. So make sure you reach out, stay in the loop, and I'll see you next time.